All right, so in front of you should be soon, being passed out, a list of 15 specific, concrete procedural tactics proposed by strategists like Adam Gentleson, Deputy Chief of Staff under Democratic Majority Leader, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, that taken together could give Senate Democrats the means to delay this illegitimate seizure of our courts until after the election or beyond. We're sharing them today to invite a real, rounded strategic conversation with our senators. Now, there may be tactical reasons why our senators think some of these proposals don't make sense. So let's hear them and act accordingly. But we're gathering today to make very clear that one reason that is not valid or acceptable to the people of Rhode Island is decorum. The United States Senate is not a country club. It is a place where power over us and our families is wielded, where decisions get made that decide the life or death of millions of people across our country. Political civility is a fine value, but it's not as important as a woman's right to choose. It's not more important than maintaining a livable planet. It's not more important than health care for countless Americans. And so we want to hear from Senator Reid and Senator Whitehouse if they will commit to the following actions to delay this confirmation, and if not, then why? And if so, then how can we help them and join them to get this done? So I'm going to start with 10 proposals for how senators can delay action in the Senate generally. The first one I'm going to focus on touches a whole lot of the others, and that is objecting to routine consent agreements. The Senate runs on a system of unanimous consent. That's how the most basic daily business of the Senate gets done. And any senator may object to routine unanimous consent agreements like those to adjourn, to recess, to approve the journal, to dispense with the morning hour. Each of those motions can force roll call votes on these routine motions, requiring senators to come to the Capitol. And just for background on all of these, when I say could require a roll call vote, force a motion, I think intuitively we might think, well, that's maybe a few minutes. Traditionally, right now in the Senate, a vote lasts hours. We're talking about hours of time to bring all the senators in. Each vote can compel debate. We talked about how long debate can last. It forces senators to actually come into the building. With COVID precautions, it takes even longer because folks have to file in individually. Each of these things that we're talking about, each vote, each motion, we could be talking about hours and hours of time eaten up. So number two, this is probably the one that is easiest to understand, speaking at length. In the absence of unanimous consent agreement governing time to debate, a senator who gets recognized to speak can speak at length. Brandon already alluded to Ted Cruz's 21-hour speech marathon on the House floor where he took to reading Dr. Seuss. We've been seeing Republicans do this for years to obstruct justice, to obstruct the public will. We're asking our senators to start using those same tactics to stand up for public will. Number three, new legislative day. If the Senate adjourns without unanimous consent for how they handle the routine business at the beginning of the next day, then the next day starts with what's called the morning hour. That's a 2-hour period that has a number of required procedures. Any one of them, senators can make a non-debatable motion to proceed. Again, can eat up an incredible amount of time. Number four, objecting to lifting quorum calls. Any senator can object to unanimous consent to lifting a quorum call. Republicans can get to quorum on their own. They have over 50 people. But if if Democrats force them to produce that themselves, that means that every senator needs to be in the Capitol. That means that they're going to be tied up in D.C. We're talking about the last few weeks before an election. We've got some Republican senators in tough re-election battles. They want to be in their home states campaigning. They've got things that are scheduled that can't be unscheduled, like debates. Tom Tillis in North Carolina has a debate scheduled on NBC for a date that we can force him to be back in the Capitol. So there's a whole lot of potential there. Number 5, motions to adjourn and recess. Any senator can move to adjourn, can move to take a recess. All of those motions take precedence over a motion to move forward with confirmation. So you can imagine senators making an almost endless series of motions of this sort to again force roll call votes, each of which is going to eat up more time. Number 6, layover requirements. There are certain points along the legislative process going from committee to the floor, not even substantive things, even reports that under the Senate rules require a layover period of 1 or 2 legislative days. That routinely those are waived through unanimous consent agreements. Democrats can force those layover days to happen to continue to delay. Number 7, raising points of order. So any senator who gets recognized can raise a point of order to make a procedural objection, and then even if the presiding officer overrules that objection, they can appeal it, and senators can demand a roll call vote on each of those steps in the process. You can imagine an extremely large number of procedural questions on which to vote. Filing cloture, number 8. This one's a little confusing, but if the Senate's not governed by unanimous consent, a senator can move to have a measure to file cloture on motions to proceed, and then 2 days later the Senate is required to vote on that motion, so we can start filing those and 2 days later eat up more time. Number 9, another bit of a confusing one, but there are a number of statutes, including the Congressional Budget Act, Congressional Review Act, the War Powers Act, the Arms Export Control Act, that statutorily give every senator the right to basically force a roll call vote on a particular vehicle. The smart folks who understand Senate procedure say that there's huge potential in that to eat up a whole lot of time. And finally, number 10, utilizing Rule 14. Rule 14 says any senator can have any legislative measure placed on the calendar in 2 legislative days. So the whole Democratic caucus, every Democratic senator can start introducing en masse every single issue that they care about. And if Leader Schumer can get to the floor, he can then proceed to each in turn, can file cloture, withdraw motion to proceed, create sort of an infinite feedback loop that can sort of stack up endlessly and basically shut down the business of the Senate. So those are the 10 procedures for delaying Senate action generally. There's also 5 proposals for delaying Senate action in the Judiciary Committee, which is the first step that confirmation has to go through. I'll go over these real quick because we're getting real dry here. But senators can demand adequate time to review nominees. They can object to the committee meeting more than 2 hours after the Senate convenes on a day. Leader Schumer has already made some signals that there's willingness to do that. So this fight that's happening across the country has momentum. We're having an impact at the highest levels of the Democratic Senate. Full hearings. Democratic members of the committee could try to continue the proceedings of any hearing the chairman calls. Holdover committee action. There's a rule in the Judiciary Committee that allows folks to demand that a nomination be held over for a week. Again, with all of these rules, it's possible that Republicans could try to change the rules, which creates a whole other fight which eats up time and also shows the illegitimacy of this process. And finally, again, denying quorum, similarly to how they do it in the Senate generally, they can force Republicans to produce a quorum all on their own, forcing those people to be tied into the Capitol. And there's a number of those folks who have tough re-election fights as well. So, Our point here is not to say that this is an exhaustive list. It's not to say that it guarantees success, but it is to say that we have very real options on the table to block and delay and fight against this confirmation. These are tactics that Republicans have been using for years to shut down the majoritarian will of the American people. It's time for our side to use them to stand up for the democratic will of the American people. So we are hoping to get a response from our senators about these proposals or others. Again, they know more about the Senate than we do. They should have other ideas for how they can block it. What we're asking them to do is to use any means necessary to not let political civility get in the way of defending our most fundamental rights. Everyone on your handout, there's a phone number that links to a simple dialing tool that will connect you to your senators and then patch you through to Leader Chuck Schumer's office. It gives you a script for the message to leave. We all need to stay in this fight. Every one of our values is on the line, so let's keep fighting. Whose court? Our court! 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 What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! If we don't get it, shut it down! Thank you, everyone. We'll keep you in the loop. We're going to need to keep the pressure on. Let's keep this fight going. Thank you all so much.